Welcome to another episode of The Mind's Eye with Mike Lowry. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time out, tuning in. I want to give a special shout out to Glenn and Haymaker for collaborating and making this all happen. I want to also thank Rod for tapping in with me again. He and I have done an episode together. It's got over 4,000 views on YouTube currently. And we wanted to kind of talk about leadership and talk about, we have leadership in the community, leadership in business, leadership in other forms of life, but we want to talk about leadership in the home and what that looks like. So, Rod, can you tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so again, I'm Rod. Thank you for the invite. From Georgia area, been living in North Carolina for a very, very, very long time. Went to the North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina. But education, been doing education over 10, 15 years. I'm a behavioral therapist. I work with kids with autism. And so I love what I do, and I love making a difference in children's lives.
Thank you, man. Welcome back. Welcome back. Let's get to it. So, when you hear leader of a household, what responsibilities resonate with you the most?
The responsibility of leading by example. I think leading by what you do rather than what you say has way more implications to it. And I think when you are a person who leads by what you're doing, what you say, it kind of connects and it makes more sense. So I think for me, leading by example and whatever it is that you're doing in the home, just being that example, that positive example.
Absolutely. I think as a leader of the household, everybody between your wife, your kids, you're responsible for. So you set the tone of the day. You keep it simple, but you lead by example. To your point,
You attempt to.
attempt to. Yeah, I mean there could be chaos here and there, but a good leader will keep it back on track.
For sure.
So how would you define authority versus influence?
So when I think about authority, I think about give an example, like a police officer. When you see an officer come down the street, you slow down because you don't want to go get a ticket or worse. I think about a principal for school. Principal come down the hallway, the kid, they stop talking, they straighten up. So, but someone who inspires you is more like a mentor. Like for example, when I was going to school, I had a few teachers who mentored me that I looked up to a lot. So they was able to inspire me by what they did in their words because I admired them so much. So an influencer is someone who can inspire you to make a positive change. An authority figure does it by just who they are or what they represent.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I think I look at the difference between like a manager and like a leader. A manager is someone like at your job that has the authority of like they're in charge. If the ship sank, they're the one that's going to be responsible for it. But in terms of a leader is going to be someone that's going to be able to coach the team and understand that regardless of who that individual is, the way they coach that person is not going to be the same. Everybody has different styles in the way they receive information. Some people are visual learners. Some people are people that need a phone call or email or what have you. While a good leader knows his team and knows how to coach his team to help influence them not only to be a better employee, but also a better person. A manager just comes to work and do as I say. That's it. So let's move along.
Yes, sir.
So how do you lead when you don't have all the answers?
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. And so I think when you don't have all the answers, leaning on your faith is really important, right? Because as a leader, you're not going to have all the answers all the time. In fact, you won't have any of the answers most of the time when you're asked to lead in certain situations, right? And so I think when you're in situations where you're not sure about things or things may not be as clear, especially in the household, leaning on your faith to recognize that you're making the best decision for your family and things are going to work out according to God's will. So that's my answer to that question when it comes to that.
I would say not avoiding responsibility. We may not all have all the answers, but you can utilize the discernment. You can take on the things that you learned for prior situations that may be similar and kind of utilize those same principles that you use for that other situation to apply to this one. And then just accept where the chips fall and be responsible and take responsibility even if it doesn't go in the way you had hoped for it to.
And just to think back on what you just said, also too being human in that, right? Just hey, listen, I made a mistake in this right here. Like maybe I didn't lead this the right way, but understanding that and accepting that sometimes you make a mistake. We're human beings, so we're gonna make mistakes, right? But recognizing that mistake and then learning and doing something different moving forward. So
Right, I agree. I think people will respect you more for it as well. And even if you make the wrong mistake, if you will, people will still follow you
For
because
sure.
they take you're taking responsibility.
for sure.
So let's get a little deeper into like internal work in terms of your character and your emotion, and whether you're just being present or not. So, what personal habits or disciplines make you a trustworthy person at home?
With me, I try to be consistent in everything that I do, right? So I value my health a whole lot, especially in the past 5, 6 years. So I value, making sure I'm healthy in that regard, what I eat, what I don't eat, what I put into my body, what I even digest as well. And just being consistent in that, right? And showing my family or attempting to show my family what that looks like day in and day out. And discipline, that's a good word, because when you're disciplined, you're going to do things even when you don't want to do them, right? And so, for example, for me, is going to the gym. Like sometimes I go to the gym, I don't want to go, but I know I need to go, so I go. So when you're able to have that discipline and you're able to what that means, and you can show your family that, I think that also goes to character. It also goes to other things as well when it comes to being a leader in your home and a leader with your family.
Absolutely. 90% of what we say never comes out of our mouth. So it's all about action. Are we leading by example by the choices we make and the things that we do in and out of the home? Integrity. All right. All right. So how would a man handle stress in front of people he leads? Like you're stressed out, you're dealing with different things at work or your business or what have you, and then you have to come home to your wife and kids. What are some best principles and ways to kind of handle that stress as a man?
Well, I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I think it's, you can personalize it based upon who you are. So I think for me, first thing is prayer. All right, first thing is being prayerful about whatever's going on in your home. And then to me, I love to read. So I love to read books about mental health, about, personal growth. And like I told you before, I like to work out. So for me, going to the gym, it really helps me out a whole lot. It helps relax my brain, relax my mind, so I can get prepared for whatever is going on at home or what's going on in life.
Yeah, so what I do in terms of like handling that stress, like I create opportunities and create community. Like for an example, like on Mondays, a group of guys and I get up at 6:30 in the morning and we just pray. And before we pray, we talk about different things, that happen throughout the week, in terms of some good and some bad. And I think that we all need like an outlet. We can't hold all this stuff inside. We need other brothers and sisters to be able to have that community with, because, not everybody can afford therapy. You know what I mean? Not everybody has those resources. So what do you do when you're bottling all this stuff inside and you're expected to be influential to a whole entire family if you're not getting the stress out, if you will?
And you said something. You said something important too. Community is really important. Having community, have people that you can talk to and lean on, and support you, understand you, can relate to you is really, really important. I think black men, they need community, right, with other black men as well, in whatever capacity it may be. It could be the gym, it could be through faith, it could be through whatever. But I think black men need community, right, so they can talk to people, so people can relate to them, they can help them get through whatever they're getting through, or at least give them advice on what they can do moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what does emotional safety in a household look like?
That's a great question. The first thing that comes to my mind is consistency. Um, Emotional regulation. I've been like reading a lot about emotional regulation and what that means. Emotional intelligence, right? Understanding how to present yourself in a situation, understanding how to read a room, understanding how to have conversations even when it's tough. Because sometimes we can be emotional creatures, right? And we say and do things based off emotion. And even though our intent may be right, our delivery can be way off, right? And so understanding what emotional regulation is, understanding your spouse or who you've been in a relationship, understanding that person, understanding how that person will best receive that information, or whatever you're trying to say to them is really important. But I think being consistent, right, and making them feel safe, make them feel heard, make them feel valued in that relationship really, to me, speaks to what emotional intelligence is. It looks different for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Depending upon who you're dealing with in a relationship.
Yeah. Emotional safety for me is like when you're able to be vulnerable with your partner and he or she is not using it against you later on. But that is important because you got to pick well to begin with. That's the thing that a lot of us fail to do sometimes. We're not really making the right choices initially. And so when we do find ourselves in places where we are vulnerable, we realize we can't even be vulnerable with this person at all. You know what I mean? And then if we do, it gets thrown back in our faces. It makes us feel less than, and then we go into a shell. So I would definitely encourage people to choose wisely the first time if we can. I'm definitely somebody that didn't always, make that right choice to begin with. But there's no here nor there.
And I think being emotionally intelligent is like capital, right? It's almost like when you put money in the bank, right? You put money, you keep putting money in the bank, you keep doing the positive things, and you can make one decision one night, and all that money is gone, right? And so, what I'm saying is, if you're with someone in a relationship and they become vulnerable to you in that moment, and you kind of throw it back in their face, right, in a negative way, that trust is gone. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's all gone, and you have to rebuild it all over again. And sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you can't rebuild it in that way. So I just think it's really a delicate situation. It's something you learn, like something I have to learn too as well. I'm learning that
For
too
sure.
as well.
Yeah.
Growing up, how I grew up, with my dad, I love my dad. He was an amazing man, but he wasn't the most emotionally intelligent person out there in the world. You know what I mean? So I learned by watching him. So we can all grow, we can all get better at things and continue to learn from our situation. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. So another question too, like as a man, and you're leading a household, and you have wife, kids. How do you balance providing, protecting, and still being present?
Prayer, prayer, faith. I think all that stuff goes back to faith, right? I think when you and I'm a man of God, so I definitely believe in faith, and I've been praying a lot more lately in life. But I think when you lean on God and you ask God for direction, you know, things will get added to you accordingly, right? And so I think sometimes when we get away from that, we start trying to do things on our own, it becomes hard, right? But if you start building that connection with God and having that faith, things come along a lot easier for you. And it's something that I'm learning now, something that I could have did better at moving forward, right? Because we're human beings, we got all these degrees, we think, we think we know everything, so we try to handle things on our own, but sometimes it gets hard for us to do that way. So I would just say to answer your question, just leaning on faith and just praying to God about it, just letting God lead you the way He needs to lead you in that situation. Because it's tough. It's not an easy job at all. It's not.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's important to point out that the more one of those things you do, the other one will lack. So the more you provide, you're gonna be gone more. The more you protect, you might not make as much money. Like for an example, I don't know anybody that works from home, that works a 9 to 5. They never go out in the community. They never travel. That makes $200,000 a year. I don't think it's possible.
I don't think it is.
So in order for people to make that amount of money, they're gonna be gone. They're going to be on trips, to meet other clients, to meet other people, or what have you. And how do you balance that? The more money you make, the less time you're going to be here at home.
But that's why what you say. That's why it's really important to make sure you and your spouse are on the same level.
Absolutely.
Make sure there's an understanding there. Because I was talking with someone last week, and they was telling me how every 7 years people change every 7 years, career-wise, personal, whatever it is, people change every 7 years, right? So you have to understand whoever you're with in that relationship. There has to be a base level understanding of what's going on, or what you're doing, or what you're trying to accomplish together, right? And you guys have to be equally yoked.
Absolutely.
You have to be. So
The equally yoked is extremely important. A lot of times people just look at being equally yoked as just like we both love God and we both go to church. It's so much bigger than that. We have to be able to have some level of compatibility. Do we even like a little bit of the same things? And if we don't, are we willing to share those experiences together? Like, I know you don't like bungee jumping and I do. Will you at least go with me one time? And things like that. I know people, they just start to get together just based on looks. Oh, you're beautiful.
For real.
And that's not enough to sustain a relationship or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what does partnership look like when decisions are hard and opinions differ? So basically, there's a particular situation that's happened, right? And you guys have different viewpoints on what you should do about that situation. How do you feel, and what do you do about that?
That's a great question. I think in those situations, sometimes it's really best to agree to disagree sometimes. And even though you're disagreeing, it doesn't mean you're not coming to conclusion, but sometimes you go with the conclusion that best fits the situation, right? Even if you disagree. And that's where compromise comes in at, right? Because there's going to be a lot of situations in a relationship where you may disagree with the decision someone else is making, but is it for the betterment of the relationship? Is it for the betterment of the family? And so if it is, you have to compromise to understand, okay, I may not like it from my personal perspective, but it's going to better my son and my wife. So I'm going to go with, or vice versa. So I really think in those moments is really about agreeing to disagree, but also to coming to a logical decision, all right, about what's best. Now, what's best for the family? Not about what I think, not about what you think. What's best for everybody involved?
Yeah, like you know, how's the outcome going to be if we make this decision? How will everybody be affected by this decision? And I think it starts too, like, we are men of faith, we talk about God and things like that. And it goes back to being equally yoked in terms of, scripture and how it points out that obviously God is the head, and then the man is the head of the household, and the wife and the children. But that's not in any order to say that somebody is better or worse than the other person. But I do think that just like, at any job or place of business, somebody always has to have the final say. You know what I mean? Based on, so if we don't agree to disagree, who's still going to make that decision for us to, it's going to fall on that particular person. And I think that you can define that in your household. It doesn't necessarily have to be the man. There are some stay-at-home men out there too.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that's clear.
And also too, I think too, and it doesn't matter, man, woman, whatever kid. I think whoever has the most knowledge of whatever that situation is, or the best logical explanation or reasoning, I think that's what you go with, right? And I think that's kind of the best way to solve those things too.
And that too, I think you can base it on like what you're the leader at. Like, you might be good at finances, so why am I making big decisions about finances? And I might be good at planning an event for something to happen. Why are you making a big decision about that? And I think that when the person that isn't really good at making those decisions about that particular thing, then you got to check egos. And then that's going to be
do have problems. They do have. They definitely have.
All right, so let's move along. So what values should you be visible, not just spoken about? What values about you should be visible that people could just see when they see Rod walk in the building?
Discipline. I think for me, discipline for me has been a big part of my life for the past 6-7 years. Discipline, right? I think if people who really know me, people see me, they know that I'm a disciplined person, right? They know that I do things even when I don't want to do them. I'm doing them for a far bigger reason, right? And sometimes it's tough to do that, right? Being a disciplined person is tough. It's something I'm working on every day. I'm not perfect at all, so I do slip and slide every once in a while. But understanding that, all right, let me get back on. But I think when people see me, they see it. When people see me, they see a person who is disciplined, right, and someone who is willing to do what they need to do to get where they need to be. So.
Yeah, for me, it's integrity. I think integrity is the biggest thing, and integrity obviously is, when you make decisions or do things when nobody can see, but knowing that God sees me is enough. You know what I mean? So I want to make better decisions just knowing that God can see some of the decisions that I make. And then when I walk in the room, I want people to know that, I'm a man of purpose. I'm a man that, will mean what he says and do what he says and not just, be here. I want to be present.
Yeah, I like that. I like that about it.
So, in your household, reflected your leadership perfectly. If they reflected your leadership perfectly, like if your son or the people that you oversee, what would they say about your leadership?
My son would probably tell you I'm silly. He probably say I'm silly. He probably say I laugh and play around because I do play around a lot. Mm-hmm. But I think they would say if they were here now, they would say that he's a very intentional person, and that he definitely does things with purpose, and that he is disciplined about what he does, and he definitely does things even when he doesn't want to do them, but he's doing them for the betterment of us. I think they would say that right now, and just being intent about what I think doing things with intention is really important for me, because I don't like to do things just to be doing. Right? If I'm doing something, it's for a reason, right? And that reason is my purpose for doing what I'm doing. So,
I think if people say to me, is I'm persistent. Especially even with Manzai. I've been doing Manzai for some time now, and I see people in the street and be like, man, I didn't think you was gonna still be doing that. I thought you were just gonna, fall by the wayside. And then I realized that sometimes prayer and timing is the biggest thing, especially when you got people pouring into you unexpectedly. Again, I want to thank Glenn for just his space. Just stuff like that is just about being persistent. Because years ago when I first started this, it was like pulling teeth just to get normal stuff, regular stuff done for Mind's Eye. And then now it's just like I'm just starting to walk in purpose, and all that came from just being persistent. I just want to encourage anybody that's got a thing or something that they're thinking about or uncertain about and felt that they weren't sure if they were going to make it or do it, just keep doing it. If you feel like God is calling you to it, maybe he's building up character, maybe he's building up your ability to be patient, maybe he's doing something inside of you. And what people also have to realize is that timing. God has already snapped his fingers for that thing that you're praying for, but he has to arrange all the things around you, all the people around you, all the, things for things to align in order. And so sometimes God just wants to see how much spiritual stamina you have. So is your spiritual stamina in place? And if it's not, then you need to check and figure out why. And God's sitting back. He's already here. The Bible says to wait on the Lord and not for him, because he's already there. I ain't want to get biblical too much, but here we are.
Like you said, key word alignment. That's key. That alignment is heavy. It's key word.
Yeah. So, but with that being said, man, is there anything that you want to leave the people that you have in your heart that you think that people can take away and really like pour into their life or what have you? What you got for?
I just think one of the things that I'm learning right now in my life is to, I say it again, faith. I think right now in my life is really important for me to lean on my faith. And I've been doing a lot of praying a whole lot lately too. Because I think when you look at life from a humanistic standpoint, you get anxiety, all these things happen, but when you just have faith and rely on God and understanding God is going to make a way for you. He's showing you the way, but you have to listen to what he's telling you. It's something that I'm learning. So it's something I would say to people, just, find that connection with God or whatever faith you choose, whatever you choose to believe in, but find that connection, and really lean into it, because I'm telling you, it's going to be times in life where you really, really, really going to need it. So,
yeah, I want to say the word I want to leave is commitment. I think everything that we do in life that we want to be a part of, we have to commit to it. Even, when it comes to your faith, you have to commit. Like prayer is a commit. Like reading the Bible is commit. And there are times where you don't necessarily hear God. And maybe that's an opportunity for you to be still, but you're still seeking him at all times. So if there's a job opportunity that you're looking for, do the research, commit. If there's a business that you want to open up, do the research, connect with the right people that's necessary, but commit to it. The word of the day is commit. Commit to what it is that you're actually focused on and things that you want to do. And I promise you, you'll be successful. Man, thank you for coming out. I really do appreciate it. I just want to ask you a question or two. I know you're married a long time now. What are your thoughts on being a leader of your own household?
Growing up from, I would say, partial old school, partial new school, right? Having that balance, right? Just making sure that you and your wife are on the same page, making sure you're working towards the same goal, understanding where each other is coming from. So I think in today's episode, you spoke about sometimes we're not going to agree all the time, right? But how to find that balance and work towards the same goal and work together and not against each other. So just being a leader in the household is very important, because it shapes who your kids are. Right? It shapes where your relationship goes. It shapes how your marriage is. And then to your point, being connected to Jesus, God, having that strong relationship with him that gives you that guidance to where you need to step and lead your family.
That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. I got one last question for you. So what are some challenges you feel like you've had as a leader of your household, and how were you able to overcome them? I know that's a tough one. You don't got to get too personal, but you give us,
in today's society, you have a lot of successful women. You have a lot of successful people. Everyone has their own mindset, their own thought process, and understanding who you marry and the personality of who you marry is important. Right? So, who I married isn't a yes woman. She's gonna question, more so for understanding, right? She's going to take guidance, but sometimes for us as individuals, sometimes it's hard for either side to take accountability sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to hear our faults, our failures. Essentially, when you hold that mirror up to somebody's face, sometimes, even yourself, sometimes it's hard to take that feedback, right?
For
And
sure.
constructive criticism. But knowing how to take that, of course, sometimes in a moment, you'd be like, whatever. But being able to process it, come back to the table and say, hey, you were right. And just kind of understanding, again, that partnership, your relationship, because what works for my house may not work for yours.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Who I married is not the same person who you married, and personality
Right.
is different. So understanding one another, having those hard, tough conversations are very important. And then being able to sit and bask in what that significant other had said to you. Because sometimes if you sit me down and tell me what's bothering you, or maybe telling me something I don't like, sometimes I can't. It's not best to respond immediately.
Right.
Because sometimes it's good to listen to understand, and not listen to respond.
Absolutely.
So take that feedback, process it, then come back to the table, especially emotions inside, and have that constructive feedback and conversation to where you can get on the same page and work
Right.
together.
Presley, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the time, bro. Sure. Well, Ariana, thank you for taking the time. Let's have one simple question for you. I just wanted to understand, like, from a female's perspective, what do you think proper leadership is coming from a man? How would you want your man to lead your home?
So, as you all can say, faith is like above any kind of household or relationship. So, for me, a leader needs to first be led by the Lord. He needs to make sure that he is being of service in that way, so that he can now know how to lead properly. For me, for my children, things like that. I think that a key of a strong leader is someone that is able to listen and to recognize the situation, not just come in with your own ideas, but to survey the situation, assess and see, this is where we are, this is what the people around me are feeling and needing. And so maybe if I did have a plan, I need to be able to adjust and maneuver based on whatever that plan, it might not go the way that I thought it was. And any leader needs to be able to come to wherever their, I'll say, weakest people are. Like, I think of leadership in jobs and leadership in military. The leader is only as strong as your weakest person. So if you're up here and everybody else is underneath you, you need to make sure that you're able to meet them where they're at and say, hey, this is something that I'm needing right now. If I can only give about 20%, yes, you need to be that 80, but not just leave me here in my 20, like be able to grab me up, make sure I'm good, so that you can get me to my 100 or get me to my 80, wherever we're going to be.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. It was so nice. That concludes another episode of The Mind's Eye with Mike Larry. Guys, thank y'all for tuning in and tapping in. I really do appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, Glenn will have me back for another one. We'll do this again. And until then, y'all get a drink, enjoy. Y'all can hang out as long as you want. Until next time, peace.